Setting up a DAX cluster for DynamoDB caching. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. When working with Amazon DynamoDB, caching is one of the primary considerations for enhancing performance. DynamoDB Accelerator, DAX, is a fully managed, highly available, in-memory cache that can dramatically improve the performance of your DynamoDB queries. This podcast will guide you through setting up a DAX cluster for DynamoDB caching. What is DynamoDB Accelerator, DAX? DAX provides fast in-memory performance for your DynamoDB tables, reducing the response times for read-heavy workloads from milliseconds to microseconds, even at millions of requests per second. It is ideal for applications that require the lowest possible latency, such as gaming, financial services, and IoT applications. Step-by-step guide to setting up a DAX cluster. Prerequisites: an AWS account, an existing DynamoDB table, AWS CLI, or AWS Management Console access. Creating a DAX cluster. Step 1. Sign in to the AWS Management Console. Navigate to the DynamoDB console at AWS Management Console. Step 2. Open the DAX console. In the DynamoDB console, choose the DAX option in the navigation pane. Step 3. Create cluster. Click on Create Cluster. You will need to configure the following settings. Cluster name. Provide a name for your DAX cluster. Node type. Choose the node type. For testing purposes, you can select dax.r4.large. Number of nodes. Start with 3 nodes for high availability. IAM role. Create or choose an IAM role with the necessary permissions. Step 4. Cluster settings. VPC and subnet. Choose your DAX cluster's VPC and subnet group. Security groups. Select the security groups that will control the traffic to your DAX cluster. Parameter group. Select a parameter group, or use the default. Step 5. Review and create. Review your settings and click Create Cluster. AWS will take a few minutes to create your DAX cluster. Configuring your application to use DAX. Step 1. Install the DAX Client SDK. Depending on your application language, install the DAX Client SDK. For example, for Python, you can install it using pip. Pip install Amazon DAX Client. Step 2. Modify your code. Modify your application code to use the DAX Client for read operations. Below is an example in Python. From Amazon DAX import Amazon DAX Client. Import Boto 3. Hash initialize DAX Client. DAX equals Amazon DAX Client endpoint underscore URL equals your underscore DAX underscore endpoint. Hash use DAX Client instead of DynamoDB client. Table equals dax.table, your Dynamo table hash perform read operations using DAX. Response equals table.get underscore item key equals primary key underscore value print response item testing and monitoring. Use CloudWatch to monitor the performance and metrics of your DAX cluster. Test the latency of your queries before and after integrating DAX to observe the performance improvements. Best practices. Node scaling. Start with the recommended 3 nodes and scale up or down based on your application's needs. Security. Use VPC and security groups to control access to your DAX cluster. Cost management. Monitor usage and optimize the node type and number to manage costs effectively. By following these steps, you can set up a DAX cluster to significantly boost the performance of your DynamoDB tables. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website, and follow our social media links.